Dahlia Hammond knew the moment would be painful, but she never expected to be publicly humiliated in front of 200 guests dressed in suits, sequins, and polished smiles. The Riverside Grand Ballroom shimmered under the weight of crystal chandeliers and forced cheer. Her father stood at the podium, silver hair neatly combed, his smile a well-rehearsed symbol of power. "After 45 years, it is time to pass the torch," he declared, voice rich with pride. "And I am thrilled to announce my son Gavin will lead Hammond Holdings into its next chapter." Thunderous applause erupted. Gavin, 33, handsome in his custom navy suit, stood with smug assurance, one hand resting casually in his pocket as if he had just closed a billion-dollar deal. He waved like a local celebrity and then lifted his champagne flute. "To Dad, for building the empire. And to me, for making sure it stays in the family." He grinned. "Let's all wish Dahlia luck on her next adventure. Maybe this time she will pass the fast food training period." The crowd erupted into laughter, sharp, cutting, unkind. Someone near the bar even started a slow clap. Aunt Janice wiped a tear from her eye as she laughed. Dahlia froze, her face flushed, heart pounding beneath her satin dress. She forced a practiced smile, the one she had perfected at countless family dinners where she was ignored or turned into a punchline. Crinkle the eyes, tilt the head. Do not let them see the crack. But the laughter rang in her ears like a cruel echo. Her childhood friend Jenna looked away in shame, while even the servers stifled grins as they poured champagne. Her father's face shone with paternal pride, not for her, but for the son who had just gutted her with a toast. Across the room, Ryan Mitchell, the family's longtime lawyer, sat in silence, his expression unreadable. Dahlia stood slowly, lifted her own glass, and said calmly, "To family." The clink of crystal followed, but a silence lingered, thick, electric. In that moment, something deep inside Dahlia shifted. The storm had not arrived yet, but it was coming, and she would not be the one left in ruins. 3 years before that retirement party shattered what little faith Dahlia Hammond had left in her family, she had been standing in her mother's hospital room, holding a paper cup of ginger tea with trembling hands. Her mother, Elena Hammond, was propped up on pillows, her skin pale and paper-thin from chemotherapy. "You do not have to do this," she whispered, her voice more breath than sound. But Dahlia had already made her choice. She had left behind a fast-track marketing job in New York, her sunlit apartment overlooking the Hudson, and a life full of potential because family came first, or so she thought. At 25, Dahlia had believed that loyalty mattered more than ambition, that her mother's illness would at least bring their family together. She was wrong. Her father made his weekly appearances, just long enough to kiss Elena's forehead, check the latest stock performance, and vanish before the hard parts. Gavin came on Tuesdays and Fridays, always with flowers and clocking exactly 35 minutes. He called it quality time. Dahlia called it a checklist. She was the one who drove her mother to appointments, navigated insurance hellscapes, coaxed her to eat when nothing stayed down, and held her when she sobbed through the nights. And yet, when Gavin suggested they hire a private nurse, their father looked to him like he had offered a genius business proposal. "Smart thinking, son," he said. "Dahlia is not really cut out for medical care anyway." That was when it began. The slow erasure, the quiet discrediting of everything Dahlia did behind closed doors. No applause, no recognition, not even a thank you. Just a steady hum of dismissal that would crescendo into that ballroom humiliation years later. If you have ever been the one holding things together while someone else took the credit, comment the word "yes" below. And make sure to subscribe, because women like Dahlia deserve to be seen. Her mother noticed, though. In those final months, the two of them built a rhythm of quiet resistance. Dahlia read her books at night, spooned broth into her mouth during the day, and laughed at bad TV in between. Elena started telling her things she had never told anyone about old dreams, miscarriages, regrets, and about the fire she saw in Dahlia's eyes, even when others refused to look. That fire would soon be tested, because when Elena died, she left behind more than memories. She left behind a secret, one that would burn everything her husband and son thought they owned to the ground. The attic had always smelled like cedar and forgotten things. It was where childhood toys went to retire, and photo albums curled under the weight of dust. Dahlia had climbed the creaking staircase that spring afternoon just to find a box of her mother's scarves. Instead, tucked beneath layers of yellowing newspaper and an old Christmas wreath, she found the chest. It was her mother's hope chest, the one she remembered from childhood but had not seen in years. The brass latch gave easily, and inside, wrapped in lavender tissue paper, was a leather-bound ledger, thick, heavy, and oddly out of place among the linens and keepsakes. She opened it out of instinct more than intent, and what she found inside would shatter the last illusion she had of her family's legacy. The pages were filled with her mother's handwriting, neat, deliberate, and unmistakably Elena. Line after line detailed transactions, stock purchases, capital loans, silent partnerships. It was not sentimental budgeting or grocery receipts. It was a map of quiet power. And the numbers told a story no one had ever spoken aloud. For over 20 years, Elena Hammond had been acquiring shares in Hammond Holdings, slowly, smartly, and legally. By the last page, Dahlia could hardly breathe. Her mother had owned over 60% of the company. Not Daniel, not Gavin. Her. Still stunned, Dahlia brought the ledger to a family barbecue a week later. She showed it to Gavin while he flipped Wagyu burgers on a designer grill he had not paid for. He barely glanced at the pages. "That is just Mom being Mom," he said with a lazy grin. "She always tracked every dollar. Probably thought it was cute to pretend she had a stake in the company. Nay." Then he tossed a slice of cheddar onto the meat and closed the grill like it was the end of the conversation. But it was not, because Dahlia had seen the notarized seals, the witness signatures, the banking records that matched. She made copies, scanned every page, filed them neatly in a folder labeled Elena Holdings. Her fingers shook as she closed the drawer. Not because she was scared, because the truth was bigger than any of them imagined. Her mother had been underestimated, erased, and quietly powerful all along, and now that legacy was Dahlia's to uncover and to use. The storm her mother had been building in silence was finally rising, and this time, no one would laugh. It started with a phone call Dahlia almost ignored. She was sitting at her tiny kitchen table, sunlight catching the steam rising from her mug, when the screen lit up. Ryan Mitchell. The family's longtime attorney had never called her before. Her stomach turned, the same way it had when she found the ledger in the attic. Like the air itself was warning her. "Your mother left something for you," Ryan said without preamble, his voice uncharacteristically grave. "She asked me to wait until the moment was right. I believe that moment is now." He told her to meet him at a corner booth in Millfield Cafe the next afternoon. Alone. When she arrived, the lawyer looked smaller than she remembered. Older, as if he had aged with the weight of a secret only he could carry. He placed a manila envelope between them, thick and sealed with deep red wax. Her name, Dahlia Elise Hammond, was written in her mother's signature cursive. "She made me swear not to open it until you were ready," Ryan said, "and to never show it to your father or brother until you had read every word." Her fingers hesitated at the edge of the envelope. The seal cracked softly like a whisper finally set free. Inside were two things: a letter written in blue ink on fine stationery, and a second envelope labeled "For Ryan's Eyes Only." Dahlia unfolded the letter with care, and there it was. her mother's voice. Steady, unapologetic, filled with the weight of years unsaid. "If you are reading this," Elena began, "it means I am no longer there to defend you. So I did what I could while I still had time." The letter confirmed everything the ledger had only hinted at. Elena had not just invested, she had calculated. Every share, every loan, every quiet transaction had been designed not just to build Hammond Holdings, but to secure Dahlia's future. For over 15 years, Elena had quietly become the majority shareholder of the very company that dismissed her and ignored her daughter. "Silence does not mean powerlessness," the letter said. "I stayed quiet so you would not have to." When Dahlia finally looked up, her hands trembling, Ryan slid the second envelope toward her. "There is more," he said softly. Inside was her mother's final legal will, witnessed, notarized, and filed. Dahlia did not just have proof, she had power. And for the first time, someone had seen her not as the daughter in the shadows, but as the rightful heir to everything they tried to deny her. The ballroom was humming with post-dessert chatter and the clink of empty champagne flutes when Ryan Mitchell stood. The sound of his chair scraping against the polished marble floor was subtle, but commanding. Dahlia saw it from across the room, the briefcase at his feet, the letter in his hand, the weight of what was about to unfold pressing against the air like an approaching storm. Her mother's words echoed in her chest. "Let them celebrate their illusions. Let them toast their own ignorance. Then burn it all down with the truth." Ryan cleared his throat, and the chatter softened, though not immediately. A few guests near the bar kept talking, still caught in the glow of Gavin's smug coronation as heir to Hammond Holdings. "As many of you know," Ryan began, "I have served as legal counsel to the Hammond family for over 2 decades. The tone was gentle, familiar. Dahlia's father smiled, arms crossed in confidence, expecting a glowing endorsement of his legacy. Gavin paused mid-conversation, straightening his tie. No one expected the next sentence. "There is one more matter that must be addressed before this evening concludes." Elena Hammond left behind a second, legally binding will. Silence spread like wildfire, gasps, confused glances, and one audible laugh from someone who thought it must be a joke. But it was not. Ryan pulled out the envelope Dahlia had held with shaking hands just weeks earlier. He opened it carefully and began to read. "I, Elena Marie Hammond, being of sound mind and body, hereby revoke all previous wills and declare this to be my final testament. To my daughter, Dahlia Elise Hammond, I leave the entirety of my estate, including all real property, financial accounts, and 62% ownership of Hammond Holdings." A wine glass shattered on the floor. Gavin's face drained of color. Daniel Hammond looked like he had forgotten how to breathe. The murmurs became a roar. Ryan raised his voice above the chaos, unfolding a second letter. Elena's message to the room. "This is not a gift," she had written. "It is recognition. Of the daughter who stayed when others left. Of the only person in this family who saw me as more than a role to play." Dahlia rose slowly, walked to the front of the room, took the microphone, and smiled. Not the practiced smile they had grown used to, but a real one. "My mother built this," she said, "and now I will finish what she started." Dahlia did not celebrate when the court dismissed her father's final appeal. She did not pop champagne or post triumphant headlines. Instead, the morning after the judge confirmed her legal and majority ownership of Hammond Holdings, she slipped on a navy blazer, tied her hair back, and walked through the glass doors of a building that had once made her feel invisible. The receptionist looked up, startled, then smiled in recognition. "Good morning, Miss Hammond," she said. Not Mr. Hammond's daughter, not the other one, just her name. Dahlia smiled back. She did not take the executive elevator. She started with the warehouse. She shook hands with every employee on shift that morning, asking their names, how long they had been there, what they needed to do their jobs better. Some stared in disbelief. Others lit up like someone had finally noticed. She found out Janet in receivables had been covering 2 roles for 9 months after Gavin refused to approve a replacement. She learned that the maintenance crew had been using outdated equipment for years, waiting on budget approvals that never came. And she sat with Maria from customer service, who spoke 4 languages fluently and had suggested 3 times that they expand into Hispanic markets. No one ever followed up, Maria said softly. Dahlia replied, "You're now head of international outreach." Her changes were not flashy, but they were immediate. Equipment was delivered. Janet got her assistant. Maria got a new title and her own department. And Joanne Williams, the woman Gavin once called too gentle for leadership, became the new VP of operations. Joanne cried at her promotion. "I thought maybe I was just not management material," she whispered. Dahlia squeezed her hand. "No," she said. "They just never looked close enough." The building changed too. Where arrogance had once passed for authority, kindness began to take its place. Meetings became conversations. The air felt lighter. Even the lobby looked different. Not because of new furniture, but because Dahlia's presence changed how people stood, how they spoke, how they were seen. She did not lead like her father. She did not dictate like Gavin. She listened, adjusted, and followed through. And for the first time in decades, Hammond Holdings, now officially Elena and Company, was not just a family name. It was a statement. That legacy is not claimed by bloodline, but by who shows up when no one is watching. Dahlia had shown up, and she was just getting started. 18 months after she stepped into the role everyone said she would never earn, Dahlia Hammond stood at a podium in front of 300 industry leaders, her voice steady, her shoulders squared. The sign behind her read, "Elena and Company," the name that now replaced a legacy of erasure with one of intention. She had turned a boardroom into a place of belonging, a cold office tower into a living tribute. Her father no longer called. Gavin still sent holiday cards, signed "Your Brother," but she never opened them. Forgiveness had not come, not in the way people hoped, but she had found something better: clarity. She understood now that some bonds are meant to be broken to make space for something stronger. What had started as a whisper from her mother's grave had become a movement. Letters arrived weekly from women who had been overlooked, underestimated, told to be grateful. A 16-year-old girl from Minnesota, a single mother in Georgia, a CFO in Nevada who had never been invited to sit on her own company's board. They wrote to thank her, to say they finally saw themselves as capable. Not because anyone gave them permission, but because Dahlia showed them they could claim it. She launched a scholarship in her mother's name, funded startups by women who had once been told their ideas were cute. And every Sunday she drove to the cemetery with jasmine tea and fresh lilies. "They are still trying to rewrite the story," she would tell her mother with a smile, "but I am the one holding the pen now. If you believe stories like Dahlia's deserve to be told, that justice can bloom from silence, and that legacy belongs to the ones who dare to fight for it, leave a comment, share your favorite moment, and subscribe so you never miss the next chapter in our series of untold courage."